I greet you on the YouTube channel about all the most mystical and creepy, collected from the most hidden depths of the internet. Today I want to tell you the story of a cheerful young student named Adria Verga, who wrote a blog on a little-known Hungarian resource, where she shared several posts a day about her thoughts, and how she spent her leisure time. At one point, she began to appear less and less, and then completely disappeared for a whole week. But the fact that she posted after a week of absence is really terrifying. I bring to your attention the last post that the girl wrote before the disappearance. So let's start. My fingers tremble when I knock on the keys of a netbook, because I have never been so scared in my life. On the watch 2:30 a.m. and I have only half an hour to talk about what happened in the past week. Monday. I had a nightmare. In anticipation of studies, I went to bed early, but in the middle of the night I woke up from a strange sensation. I dreamed that I was underwater and it was difficult for me to breathe, because something was pressing on me. Gradually, I realized that I was waking up, but the feeling of heaviness did not pass. There was a feeling that something was lying on his chest. I sat up abruptly on the bed, and only then could I breathe freely. When I lay down again, the feeling of heaviness did not return. Tuesday. In the evening, I stayed home alone and wrote notes in my diary, listening to headphones as always. The volume was sufficient to drown out external noise, but after about 2 minutes I realized that something was distracting me. Steps, light creaking of boards. Taking out the headphones, I listened the last quiet creak in silence. I would suggest that it was the sound from neighboring apartments, but the acoustics of the house have been well known to me for a long time. The noise from the neighbors reaches our apartment only when they talk in raised tones, or rush around with pans, which is less common. So, steps were heard to me in an empty next room. Wednesday. Now I think that it was worthwhile to attach importance to this earlier. Having gone headlong into everyday worries, I did not notice something strange that was happening around me. And it was worth noting, even as it was I had a nightmare again at night, this time with me in the title role. It's like they cursed me, and now I feel the destructive fire everywhere, in the end, burning in it. When I jumped, for a long time I still could not calm the trembling in my body. My parents had already left for work, so I gradually calmed down and headed for the bathroom. I got into the shower and turned on the cold water. In a second, I would be scalded if I didn't have time to bounce to the side. Puffs of steam poured from the cold faucet, and flowed real boiling water. I turned on the hot water tap, the same thing. Cold water did not seem to exist at all. I recalled a dream, and teeth, apart from the will, began to beat off the nervous tap dance. An hour later, both faucets continued to beat with boiling water. When my mother came, I told her about the strange behavior of water. Naturally, she decided to check, opened a cold faucet, and cold water really flowed from the faucet. Not just cold. I see. I myself once again closed and opened both taps. Everything returned to normal. Having decided that the change of pipes was to blame for everything, I again went to the shower. But as soon as I turned on the cold water again, I boiled boiling water again from the tap. Angry and scared, I ran out of the bathroom to check the faucet in the kitchen. Cold, icy. Mom looked at me strangely and asked if everything was alright. This incident completely unsettled me. I waited for my parents to go to bed and closed in my room, putting on my headphones. Towards 1 o'clock in the morning, from the next room came the sound of footsteps. At first I thought that it was one of the parents who went to the bathroom, but the creak was becoming more clearly closer towards my room. It was as if someone was standing at the door. Nerves could not stand it. I quickly got up and opened the door. No one. The parents' bedroom was quiet, therefore, they were both sleeping. Closing again, I sat down at the computer and continued reading from school. However, the strange feeling of discomfort did not allow me to concentrate on the lesson. I turned off the netbook, turned off the light and went to bed. The clock was 1:15 a.m. At about 3 in the morning, I woke up from my own scream. I had a dream, so terrible that I reached the switch by touch, and, only by turning on the light, could begin to think. Oddly enough, I could not remember the dream in any way, but when I lay down again, I could not force myself to turn off the lamp. For the first time in a lifetime. Time, 2:43 a.m. Just a little more time. I can already feel it coming. Thursday. I did not go to school, citing ill health. When my parents left for work, I went to the bathroom and got a shower. Concerns about the behavior of the water supply were dispelled when warm jets ran evenly over my skin. For a minute or two I stood relaxing after a half-sleepless night. In the morning, everything that happened generally seemed like a bad dream. Suddenly, the bright light from the light bulb began to flash, first imperceptibly, then fading more clearly. I felt a surge of chilling fear, and as soon as I got out of the shower, wrapped in a towel. At that moment, when I almost ran out of the bathroom, the light went out completely. The day passed like in a fog. Even in the sunlight, I shuddered at any rustle and sound. And once she almost cried out in surprise when a truck suddenly started under the window. The sounds of music, always reassuring me, annoyed me. It was dull from the meal, and in general my condition was close to hysterical. In the end, exhausted and nervous, I lay down for a minute on the sofa, and immediately fell asleep. When I opened my eyes, the room was already dark. Almost unconsciously, I got up and went to the switch, and only when a yellow electric light filled the room could I breathe quietly. The time on the clock in the hall was 12:02 a.m. That night I sat down and tried to analyze everything that had happened during that time. Most of the oddities that occurred were from midnight to 3 in the morning, and closer to 3 the eat whatever that was became more active. 1:17 a.m. I began to count the minutes, afraid of what I could hear or know. It was scary to even think up this idea. My parents were sleeping in the next room, and I decided that tomorrow I would certainly tell what was happening to me. If in the light of recent events she has the opportunity to survive, then this will be a possible salvation. I already fell asleep right at the table. I quietly fell into a dream. When I woke up, the clock on the netbook monitors showed 2:58 a.m. And then the lamp, standing on the table, exploded with a loud bang. I cried out in fright and felt how often my heart was beating. Almost on the verge of panic, I kept telling myself only one thing. Get yourself together. You're a rational person, and you can cope with your fear. I closed my eyes, clenched my fists, and became aloud, as slowly as possible to count to 5. The panic gradually receded, but the feeling that I was not alone in the room only intensified. I covered my ears with my hands, afraid that I would lose my mind if I heard any sound next to me. So I sat there and I don't know how long it was, pulling my knees up to my chest and quietly swaying back and forth in the chair. Friday. I woke up in my room on the floor. Apparently, at night I fell asleep in the same position that I was sitting, so I did not notice how I slipped from the chair. The curtains in the room were drawn, so it seemed that it was still dark. Strange, but I did not want to see sunlight at that moment. The feeling of fear passed. I sat down and clasping my hands in my head, began to think what to do next. Firstly, I still could not tell my parents what was happening. Even if they consider me crazy, they will refer me to a psychotherapist, and there, in turn they will leave me for treatment at the hospital. The situation will only get worse. Darkness will come anyway, only meeting it with your hands bound, and feeling completely helpless is much worse. Secondly, the idea came to me to watch similar cases on the internet. Whatever it is, it must have happened to others before. Perhaps someone knows how to deal with this. The search results scared me more than I could have imagined. All articles that described similar to my situation said that this phenomenon is called obsession, and that in the end it is impossible to deal with it. There were also cases when exorcists intervened in order to expel the devil from the body of the possessed, but in both cases the outcome was fatal. Although in my case there were many discrepancies with these descriptions, I did not feel someone's constant presence, except in the dark, did not lose my appetite, did not faint. It still made a depressing impression on me. In addition, from the time I woke up, I did not leave a strange feeling that everything should soon end. This thought did not bring particular reassurance, rather, it put up with some kind of doom. Anyway, sooner or later, something must happen, because no matter how long it lasts, I am sure that I would never be able to get used to constant fear. The rest of the day passed in gloomy thoughts. Sometimes I caught myself thinking that I consciously bypassed the unlit corners in the apartment, and that from there someone is watching me intently. Even the return of my parents did not save me from this feeling. It was calmer in their presence, but I knew that as soon as I returned to my room and went to bed, how it would start again. When the clock was 11:15 p.m., my parents wished me good night and went into their bedroom. I left the table lamp in the room on and sat on the sofa with a book. It was not possible to concentrate on reading. Every nerve in the body was tense, and hearing, apart from the will, began to react sharply to every sound. In the end, I slammed the book and went to my room. Turning off the lights, I quickly climbed up with my head under the covers and closed my eyes, hoping that I would be able to fall asleep before midnight. Maybe because over the past week I didn't really sleep, or maybe because before the dangerous time, as I began to call it to myself, I felt relatively safe, but only the dream did not take long to wait. And suddenly, as if right above my head there was a loud whistling whisper. Waking up instantly, I emerged from under the covers and looked around. From that short sound I got goosebumps, because not a single human throat could repeat it. I tried to pronounce it, but it didn't even work out at all, although it clearly sounded in my memory. To say that what happened scared me was to say nothing. It is one thing when you feel something nearby, another when it itself gives out its presence. And this is really scary. I lay with my eyes open and looked at the ceiling, counting the minutes. Since the curtains were not closed at night, the moonlight fell through the windows of the room, and created a fancy play of shadows on the ceiling. I was afraid to move, afraid to even turn my head. The only thing I could do was repeat to myself the words of all my favorite songs. For For some reason, this activity always reassured me and returned the ability to think. So this time, I was almost able to convince myself that that whisper was only in my imagination, when suddenly the light of the moon refracted in a strange way, and distorted facial features of some creature appeared on the ceiling. I saw him so clearly that I screamed, not remembering myself in horror. Even when I blinked the next second, and the vision dissolved, I continued to scream until my frightened parents came running to my scream. For 5 long minutes I tried to recover. Already sitting under the bright light, feeling a soothing stroking of my mother's hand and clutching my father's other hand, I almost told them what had happened. But their care and worries made me bite my tongue. Whatever it was, it haunted me, and I didn't want my parents to become vulnerable to it. Having explained that I had a nightmare and nodding in response to their reassuring arguments, I once again remembered that face and involuntarily trembled. The picture cut into my memory so much that even closing my eyes and falling asleep again in my mother's arms, I could not drive away the vision of that terrible image. Saturday. That's almost all. On the watch 2:55 a.m. I have a little more than 4 minutes left. I myself am afraid of that strange belief that today everything will end, but I can no longer even think about what is happening. Something had just cracked in the next room. Judging by the dark strip at the bottom of the door to my room, this last bulb exploded. With the departure of my parents on night duty, I turned on the lights in the entire apartment. At midnight the lamp went out in the corridor. Now this. I just sit and write about it because I have no other choice. In the evening I took off the only mirror in my room and put it in the closet. She drew the curtains, turned on a large light and a table lamp. An hour ago, the chandelier began to flash, then went out. Now the light of a desk lamp begins to fluctuate. I am sure that in a minute she will go out. I tightly lock the door to the room, but already feel that it does not have absolutely no meaning. It is here. 2:58 a.m. Sound approaching. Lord. I feel it standing behind me. I can't turn around. The lamp went out completely, there was only a faint light from the monitor. 2:59 a.m. I cannot write. Something will happen now. I'm scared. True or not, you decide. Here's a story of a Hungarian high school student from a small village. Adria has been missing for more than 3 years. What happened to her, neither the police nor relatives can answer, since all the investigations have reached an impasse. And with you is Lim, who liked the video format, subscribe, like and bell. See you later.